Hi, I'm Gene Cavassis. I feel like I'm standing in a lineup. This is actually my garage door of my shop, and you know, this is about as boring as it gets. And every day when I come down into my shop, and I love my little shop, and I do mean little, this wall or this door just doesn't do it. So I'm going to paint this metal garage door in a steampunk fashion. So let's get started. Now first, you're going to want to go through this and you're going to want to scuff up the metal. It's a pebble-ish metal, but you'll want to give it a light scuffing, and you'll want to wipe it down with something like naphtha or even lacquer thinner just to take the shine off of it and get it all prepped and ready to paint. So I'm going to divide this into even panels that work with the single door slabs also down the center, but I'm going to divide them in the center. So these are going to end up being, that's 50 inches, so 25 inches will be my center on this, and the same with this side. Let me double check. Yep. I'm going to put a line down on each of these, and what that's going to do is it's going to help me to just paint smaller panels, which is much more controllable when I'm laying down the base color. Now the base color I'm going to use West-Olean hammered copper. Now this stuff does a great job, and I used it on my man cave fridge, the Steampunk refrigerator that I painted, and I'll put a link up in the top if you want to check that one out. And this stuff works fantastic, but it stinks to high heaven. So you're going to want to make sure you ventilate the room properly. I'm going to actually crack the bottom of this overhead door open, and I'm going to run a fan with the back door open to get some air moving through here as I start painting. Now I'm going to be using a short-haired nap roller and rolling this out and applying it to the panels. And I started by doing it just one panel at a time, and then pretty soon I realized it rolls out smooth enough that you can pretty much cover the door however it's comfortable. This stuff goes on really easily. Okay, so now I've basically rolled this surface on everything, and it dries very quickly. And I know my basic areas. So now I'm going to take something like a fusion metallic rust color, and I'm going to start dusting the upper edges. Now, what we want to do is create a pattern that says if light was coming down, the tops would be in the shadows, the bottom would be in the light. So let's lay some of that down. So now just lightly spray painting that top and side corner, and you want to make sure you do it on the same top and side corners of every one of your panels. I know it looks kind of odd right now, but just keep it going and it works out fine. I ran out of paint. I had to grab a second can and start dusting that on. And then once you finish putting those on, you're going to do the other side and bottom in a white color. And just give that a very, very soft spray. Okay, right now it looks kind of a mess right now. But this is going to take shape as we start adding the strips into this, and it's going to look great, trust me. So now I'm going to take paper and mask out basically a 3-inch strip right down the center. I'm using some 2-inch 3M painter's tape. I think I'll start with some of the charcoal paint. Now using the gray or the charcoal, I'm going to spray down on one side. And then I'm going to dust a little bit of it with the black. And then come back with the black and spray the other side of this. This is going to give it a little bit of a dimensional feel. Just down maybe one side. So now after this, it's basically like your shampoo. It's rinse and repeat. The great thing is you can reuse this paper and tape. Just keep moving it to each one of these. The lines don't have to be sharp. a little bit of edging creates a cool look. We're getting the first steps in making this thing look the way we want to. Next is to do all the horizontal. Now, I was able to reuse some of the paper and used a few more pieces as well, but don't worry about this. The main thing you want to do is use the edge of the door as one of your lines and 3 inches down from the rest. Also, put the dark or the black to the bottom, the gray to the top. This is that catching the light pattern I had talked about. You can see the direction this is going in. So now we're going to let this sit overnight. We're going to come back and start doing some of the effects. So now that this is basically dried, I decided I want to play with this and kind of give a look of sheet metal that's been pot riveted together, kind of patchwork together of each of these. I kind of wish I would have done that before I added these on, but I'll work around that. So I started thinking, why couldn't I use the computer paper that has the holes punched down the side of it that I could set up here and spray that edge with a little dusting, and it would also pick up these holes to look like rivets going down. I think I'll try it on one of the lower panels down here, so if I don't like it, I'm not out that much, it's not that much in view. Let's give it a try. It's about all I want, something about like that. And then I'll take this now, just pull that down. See what that did? Can you see that gave it just a really, really light glazing of that? So now, you know, you can't really screw this up. I just moved it around and did different patterns to get this look and feel. You know, several years ago, a friend of mine gave me a box full of this computer paper, and it worked great. I'm going to use some cheap poster board and a bottle cap to start building a template for the rivets that will go on the black and gray bars. I traced the bottle cap on and spaced them out 5 inches apart in a 25-inch pattern, just like the doors. Using an X-Acto knife, your cut doesn't have to be perfect. And now I'm going to trim this off the same width as the bars that are on the door. This is going to work great as a template to follow as you start painting the rivets on. I'm now going to use some acrylic paint in a metallic gold, metallic silver, a little bit of a teal color, that's kind of that copper when it starts getting anodized, and some white. Now this paint is cheap. You can buy it individually at about 99 cents a bottle or in a full pack. Also using some stiff bristled Fitch brushes. Now you can take your template, you basically just tape it into place, and I'm using one centered in the center frame of the door, and then once I have it down, I'm going to take my Fitch and kind of dry brush the lighter gray or the metallic up towards the top. Now I have what's called essential trimmers, and so trying to get real tight and close doesn't work well for me anymore because my hand shakes so bad. So now just keep your brush dry and dab it on there. Now I'm coming back with some gold and spotting that toward the top. I'm going to add some black onto here. So now you want to make sure your brush is still as dry as possible. I'm starting to feel like Bob Ross, man, with his happy trees. Only in this case it would be happy rivets. But so you continue to put your paint on top of your template, and once you have that done, you simply just pull it off, move it to the next spot, and do it again. You can also see that Sabella, our shop cat, was here to help the whole time. Once you've painted all these on, you can come in and take a little bit of like white and just highlight the tops of each one. This gives it a little sheen, and this is up to you how much you put on, but for me this works and really helps to sell the look that these rivets are round and actually protruding out of the straps. I also painted some of that teal to look like oxidation drips. Our next part is I'm going to take a basic sponge. I'm just going to pick it out, tear it out. Sometimes I'll use pliers or anything, but just rip this thing up. What you want to do is make it to where it's an uneven surface. Now I'm going to use some of that 2-inch painter's tape and section it around some of those parts that I had isolated off, and just take that rough sponge and start dabbing in some of that teal color and maybe a little bit of that white as well. Now you don't want to get crazy with this, but you just kind of start doing a sporadic dab, and the direction doesn't really matter because this is just to give it that look that the copper is actually starting to oxidize. I may have gone too far here. I guess we're going to find out. Okay, once again, I'm going to take a piece of this cardboard and I'm going to use it as a template. What I want to do is throw on the same top and side of each one of these steel straps. I want to spray a little bit of a translucent or a darker color that's going to give it that return shadow that will help give the depth that this is pulling up or is raised up. So I'm going to set that up, but first I'm going to raise the door open a little bit, get a little air, and kick the fan on behind and get a little air moving through this. Also, I recommend that you do use a respirator when you're, spraying indoors, but luckily too I'm going to be pushing that air through here, and that's going to help a lot. Okay, I'm going to start out, but I'm going to use some of this inexpensive wall poster tape, and I'm going to tape some of the corners, secure it down for a light spray. Now if you get a little bleed in it, that's really not going to make much difference because a shadow is meant to be kind of a soft light. So I'm going to start with this one, and I'm going to estimate about a 1/2 inch both directions. Bring it over, just kind of post that down. I'm going to use some more of this chalk, smoked glaze chalk paint. And like I say, I don't want to load it up, I just want to give it a soft spray around that. And then I'll just move through all the pieces of this and we'll see how it goes. Give it a light dusting, and already I can start to see that look that I'm shooting for. This is going to help to give your door some real depth. And don't worry about getting bleeds, it just adds to the softness. Okay, now I'm going to put a coat of matte finish water-based polyurethane on this. Now normally it says you should brush this on, but I've got so much of the surface I am going to use a roller and then use a brush to smooth any of that off if I need. What you want is a minimal amount of bubbles going on, but also if you're doing it for your home, you may want to use like a semi-gloss rather than a matte finish, and it's totally up to you. I'm using a matte finish because I think it needs to be as flat finished as possible so that the camera picks up better use of that. So now that I have that kind of on there, I'm going to start over here and just start applying. Now this stuff goes on like you're rolling milk, and that's okay because it does dry clear. So I'm just going to come on, I'm going to roll on a basic coat covering everything I can. I'm going to come back and clean it up with a paintbrush to smooth out anything that even may end up looking like runs. And like I say, I know this looks funky, but it actually should lay out pretty decent on it. I'll check back in a few. Now I put the camera on this as time lapse. You can actually watch as it starts to dry and smooth out to be a consistent finish. Well, as you can see, it has pretty much dried up the way it was supposed to. It's taken all the glossy high spots, low spots out of it. I'm pretty happy with how this has turned out all in all. So now, let's hang a few things on it. So using some conduit straps, I bent these up and then painted them brown so that that would hold some of the projects that I've done. Now the big thing is, I'm not going to go into detail because you're going to have different things that you want to hang on the door. But the big thing to remember is no matter what you do, you want to make sure that when you open that door, these things are going to stay in place. Okay, so I've got the door done. I've put all my props up on it. So there's only one last thing to check out. So let's do it. Voila! And voila! Perfect. Okay, so here is my man cave wall. I got to hang some of the props that I've built in previous shows and some cool looking lanterns on it. I've designed this so that I can open the garage door and all these props will still stay in place, but I can pick them off and use them if I want to at any time. So if you have any questions, comments, put them in the comment section down below. I also suggest you checking out the Man Cave refrigerator. That's a fun build too. I'll see you soon.